and it says it's fine. Let's see if it's true. Is YouTube lying to me? It says it's starting. Yeah. Alright. We're all good. All except for the really loud fans on the laptop. But there's not much I can do about that. Maybe it'll cool down soon. Are you there, Rick? I don't think we can hear you. Well, while he's fixing that, hello everyone, and welcome. We're going to be talking about some Zelda Breath of the Wild rumors. Nope, still cannot hear you. We're going to be talking about some Breath of the Wild rumors. Well, yep, I heard something.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, my mic came unplugged.
Ah. Hey, Wild. Yeah. So, alright, I guess I'll just start off. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is not an official 𝐓𝐳𝐿𝐽𝐴𝐺𝐵 but it will be on iTunes and your other podcast services. We're just going to be talking about some quick rumors with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. Lego and Nintendo announcing their partnership, and of course E3 being cancelled, which isn't quite as bad as people think it is, because despite the get-togethers and everything, the personal connections not happening, they are still going to have their events like the Nintendo Direct. With Microsoft and PlayStation, I think they announced that they wouldn't be showing up at E3 anyways, or something like that. Which, honestly, for years now, Microsoft has been like, no, we're not a part of E3. But then during E3, they have their own weird thing that's like literally right next to E3. So instead of being in the convention center, they're in the Microsoft Theater, which they own. Yeah. So like instead of
it's right across from the convention hall.
It's like, no, we're not going to be a part of E3. Like, that party is done. We're not going to be doing anything with that. We're going to be at the party right across the street in like the somewhat fancier theater. So then like last year it was just PlayStation and Nintendo. And even with Sega, the big game they were promoting was the Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. So it's like even Sega's side of E3 was mostly Nintendo themed because it was like Mario and Sonic and everything. But anyways, so like E3 is not happening, but you are still going to be getting all of your new game announcements and stuff like that. Especially from Nintendo, they'll have their Nintendo Direct and their Treehouse event where they show off everything. So everyone who watches at home, almost nothing is going to be different. It'll only be different for the people that do go to E3. And I would say people like IGN and the larger websites will still be invited out. Like they'll invite a few different people from the larger websites to come and play the games hands-on, but it'll be in like hotels and stuff like that and private events. It won't be at like the convention center with thousands of people. So
they'll most likely be sending private emails to people and having them come in separately and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. So on to the Zelda Breath of the Wild rumors. This is something that I talked a little bit about on one of my videos, and I went to talk about it on another, but I've been stuck editing it because I've not really been sure to like how I should talk about it. But I think a discussion here would be good, a quick discussion with Rick. So what happened was, being a Zelda channel, you get emails, comments, stuff all the time. Some of them end up being rumors that are true, some end up being not true. Over time, you end up making connections with people in the industry, which is what I explained in the last video that I had, like how we have like people who have actually not just worked at Nintendo, but worked on Zelda games on the channel. And we've made other friends who are well-known insiders that you see on Twitter all the time, posting reveals and leaks and stuff before they come. So you become friends with people like that and stuff. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they are right, and because Nintendo or whoever wants to keep it a surprise, they end up saving what would have been announced for a later announcement, or they replace it with another bit of information just to make it seem like these people aren't trustworthy. So there's like a weird cat and mouse thing that goes on sometimes. But anyways, what we do, or what anyone should really do, is when you get a piece of news, don't just go and talk about it and post about it and be like, hey, this is what's going to happen in the next Zelda game so-and-so told me. Because then if it ends up being wrong, or someone says, no, that, like, I know someone who's working on the game and what you said is completely wrong. You don't want to be in that kind of situation because it ruins every bit of credibility that you have. But sometime, yeah. But if you know multiple people who are known insiders, then you can confirm it with multiple sources. And sometimes it ends up being true, sometimes it doesn't. With the information that we posted the other day, which I guess right here, I'm just explaining this to the live audience, but for the recorded version, this is where it starts. So I was sent an email and was talking to a well-known insider, and they told me a bit about Zelda Breath of the Wild 2. And you get sent a lot of stuff sometimes. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. You don't want to talk about it as soon as you get it. So I went and talked to some other people about it, and without exactly saying what it was, just saying, hey, I got this bit of information, didn't exactly say what it was, and they ended up saying it before I did, basically. But they also gave more information that I didn't get from the first person alongside it. So I had someone who confirmed the first bit of information, but I wasn't able to get anyone to confirm the second bit. And the first bit was the easy mode, which everyone's already seen and everything, which is that they are taking in advice from people who played the game, and you're going to get some durability changes. I don't know if it's going to be a feature like attached to an amiibo, like in the Ganondorf amiibo is the example that I used in Twilight Princess. You could tap it, and it would basically be hard mode. Enemies would do double the damage. So I don't know if it's a feature like that where you tap a certain amiibo and then all of a sudden it'll fix all of your items to where the durability and the stats or whatever get healed, almost as if your character got healed, but instead it's your equipment. Or if
rather interesting.
Yeah, or if it would be a mode that you can go and switch to. Like I think in Wind Waker, you could just pause the game and switch from hero mode to normal mode.
Yeah, I think I was yesterday during my stream I was mentioning it, and I was saying how it would be cool if they made it to where you could toggle it off and on so that you don't have to go and restart the entire game, you know.
Yeah.
Be limited by that.
Yeah. And they also said that they were experimenting on just making the durability, like items twice as durable, or like 3 times as durable, or just making them like infinitely durable to where they just won't break at all, unless it's something like from a past Zelda game that would normally break. Like in past Zelda games, you could always get a Deku stick, like an Ocarina of Time, and after 1 or 2 hits, it'll break or it'll burn, or your Deku shield, because it's wooden, would burn as well. So stuff like that would still happen, but all of your metal weapons and stuff, like you'd probably still get struck by electricity, but they wouldn't break. They would be like permanent. Like in Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess, you never had to worry about a shield or a sword or anything breaking. So it would be a mode kind of like that, like a classic mode, I guess is what you would call it, instead of an easy mode. So we don't know how they would implement it, or even if they would implement it at all. This was just something that was told to me, and then someone else confirmed it. But the second piece of news that was confirmed is a video that I haven't spoken about it, and it is about, again, Breath of the Wild 2, but a new enemy. And they described it as a new aggressive version, or just like something to replace the Guardians in the game, which kind of makes sense story-wise. They didn't say if the Guardians would still be in the game or not. Story-wise, it would make sense that they wouldn't be, because if you destroyed the Calamity, then the Guardians who were possessed by the Calamity would turn good instead of bad. So it would make sense story-wise that something would replace them. And since that's 𝐓𝐿𝐼 that was corrupted, the only thing that made, like, this isn't what they told me. This is just how I tried to have it make sense story-wise for something to replace the Guardians, is if that is 𝐓𝐿𝐼, then the Yiga, who are just evil Sheikah, would have similar technology. So they could build their own versions of the Guardians, since the Guardians were built by Sheikah and powered by Sheikah magic, and the Yiga are basically just evil Sheikah people. They would have the same knowledge and same powers and everything. They would just have like a corrupted moral sense about them. But they described it as having multiple stages or whatever. Like when you're fighting a normal Guardian inside a shrine, they have their melee phase to where they attack you, and like they swing and you can dodge them, or they'll charge at you and stuff. And then once you get their health so low, they'll start spinning in a circle and start shooting a laser everywhere, and then that's their second stage. And these like replacement Guardians, or whatever they're going to be called, would have a second stage to where the first part would be like just a more aggressive Guardian, but then once you get them like halfway done, or you like break off their legs to where they can't chase after you, instead of them remaining normal, like the bottom part and the top part would break apart, and then they would be like a flying Guardian. So if you could imagine just a more aggressive Guardian, and then it kind of just, once it tears up, the head just rises up out of it and it turns into the flying Guardian.
It's
But
very reminiscent of the enemies from Skyward Sword that will shoot the projectiles at you, and then they actually have 2 other objects that split off from them, and they go to try to attack you as well. That'd be kind of cool to see, like the head floating up off the body after it's kind of been dismantled a little bit.
yeah, I could see it. And then like the way they described it to me, with like them flying at you and being aggressive, is what came to mind to me was the P-hats, because that they also mentioned that as well. Is like they said, imagine like when you're playing Ocarina of Time and you first go into Hyrule Field and like you see the big landscape and everything like it looks peaceful, it looks beautiful. And then like once you start, if you go on the path to Hyrule Castle, everything is fine if you make it there on time. But like as soon as you leave Kokiri Forest, if you just go to the left just the tiniest bit, this giant P-hat starts chasing you. And that's what they described it as, is like more of like a mix between a guardian and a P-hat. And that pops up with like dozens of ideas. Like, is it a guardian that can, instead of crawling around, it can turn its tentacles into like blades or whatever and start spinning like a P-hat to fly? Is that how the stage works? Or
that would be terrifying, seeing one of those.
Yeah, like it really is. And we've seen, like, if you look at the Creating a Champion book, there's pages with tons and tons of concept art of different champions and different guardians, or not well, yeah, actually, yeah, there are screenshots of different champions. There was the Kokiri champion, but they have pages of concept art for guardians and divine beasts and stuff. And there's like a really aggressive looking guardian. And it makes me wonder if that concept that they originally had is what they're going with now. But that's just my thoughts, and I've been talking for a long time. So Rick, why don't you go ahead and give your thoughts on these rumors and let everyone know where they can find you and your channel.
Well, first we'll start with that. You guys can find me over at 𝐷𝐼𝐴, or search up 𝐷𝐼𝐴 Gaming. Yeah, I do a lot of theories, top fives, and topics like these from time to time. Right now we're doing a stream of the entire Zelda timeline, so if you guys want to come over and join me Friday, you can do that. Just again search 𝐷𝐼𝐴 on YouTube. And my thoughts on these rumors, I mean, it's like you were saying, with the whole like it being, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be Sheikah tech or what it's going to be, because we don't even know if we're going to see any Sheikah technology in the game. I'm sure we will to a certain extent, but like all of the towers and stuff like that are gone from what we've seen in the preview trailer. I don't know to what extent that is, or we'll find out soon enough, but it would be interesting if it is more like a Yiga Guardian. That would be very cool to see if they like somehow manage to find a way to hack the Guardians in some type of fashion, and make it to where they could strap their own materials onto it.
Yeah. I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you said like hack into it, spoiler, Breath of the Wild, the true ending for it does end with Princess Zelda saying that the Vah-Ruta, right? Yeah, Vah-Ruta is acting up or whatever. We gotta go check on it for the king. So if the Yiga did manage to hack into them, that would go along with the story that Breath of the Wild ends on, because if it's not the Calamity, you destroyed the Calamity. We know Ganondorf's body's down there, but we don't know exactly what it is capable of doing. But we do know that there are still Yiga everywhere, and they know the magic and the technology of the Sheikah. So exactly. It would make sense for them to hack the Guardians, like you said. So that would also explain the Divine Beast, but continue. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to interrupt.
The interesting thing with that too is like uh, I've felt for the longest time that the Yiga kind of got like the back seat in Breath of the Wild. Like they Nintendo missed out on an opportunity to like really take advantage of them in that type of aspect in terms of them, because the Sheikah split off 10,000 years prior to Breath of the Wild because the king banished all the Sheikah technology. The kingdom started to fear the power of the Sheikah tech, and so they told them, you guys got to bury it and not use it anymore. So the Yiga were created because of that, and it's not like very clear on whether or not they just split and the Yiga was formed right then and there, or if it was formed 10,000 years later, right before the Great Calamity. That's all unclear. However, what I find interesting is that the Yiga didn't abandon the technology like the normal Sheikah did in Kakariko Village, and neither did the monks. So, like, they should know more than what they do. They shouldn't be these bumbling fools, but they are. So I hope they expand on it in Breath of the Wild too. It would be really nice to see that.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, like, cause like the main boss for the Yiga was more of like a comedy thing. So I wonder if they did do that. If they made it purposefully, like, oh, these are the bad guys, but they're bumbling fools. They're the comedy gimmick. Like when you come across like playing Skyward Sword and you're fighting some of the dumb bokoblins or moblins, whatever they're called in that game, and they're just like throwing rocks at you, and like they're basically idiots. We have that somewhat in Breath of the Wild. Like you can come across them and like throw a barrel down while they're having a campfire, and then it'll just like explode, and there's a lot of comedy in it, and I wonder if that comedy also went towards Yiga, the Yiga clan.
Yeah, I think they had mentioned in creating a champion or something that it's based off of some type of dance, or Koga himself was based off some sort of dance or something like that. I can't remember, like when they were designing his character specifically.
That's interesting. So with to end this off with the new enemy coming, can you think of an enemy from just like one enemy from a past game that you would love to see? And if anyone in the chat, there's about 50 of you watching right now. If you have any questions for us to answer, please go ahead and put your questions in, and we will try to answer a few of them at the very end of this. But if you want us to answer your question immediately, as it says, you can support us with a super chat, even just like a penny, and we'll read out your question, give you an answer, discuss it for a bit and everything. So thank you, Tommy, for subscribing, and thank you, Wild Horse, for subscribing to RMFH. So one enemy to return, RMFH.
Honestly, I'd really enjoy seeing, and it would fit with the darker tone of Breath of the Wild 2, are the Poes.
Yeah.
Any type of like spiritual type of enemy like that would be really cool to see. A ghost, but Poes specifically would be cool to have return in Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah. I would like to see, I've said this a ton, but I still would love to see the Dark Nuts or something like that.
That was my first pick, but I didn't want to go with those. I think I went with those in the video that we had done in the past. Those would be another one.
Yeah. Because like if you think of them at like in Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time, like at first they're like really slow but really powerful, and then when you get them like halfway defeated, sort of like the stages we were talking about earlier with the new type of guardian or whatever it is, they have the like they become more aggressive, they're faster. I don't think their attacks are as strong, but they attack faster, and like they can chase you down instead of like walking really slow. And it would be interesting to like when you go into the castle in Hyrule Castle and Breath of the Wild, there's like the doors shut down and there's like a Lionel there or whatever. To me, it would make more sense if there's like a soldier uniform or whatever, like a knight's armor, but then it gets possessed by the calamity and then it comes to attack you and then you fight a dark knight, like in the is it the Spirit Temple in Twilight Princess?
It was the
Temple of, like when you go into the Temple of Time and you have to do that dungeon, Temple of Light, whatever it was called. There's the mini boss whenever you go in, and it is the Dark Knight that you have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So something like that, to where like the door shuts behind you and you have to fight. That would be, I think that would be really cool. But moving on to
those moments.
moving on to this next topic here, the Lego and Nintendo are working together for the first time. There was rumors of this a long time ago. We reported on it. It was supposed to be, there were rumors everywhere about Nintendo and Lego working together, that they were going to be a Lego Nintendo game, a Lego Zelda game, and possibly another type of Lego game. So these rumors came out around the same time that the rumors for Nintendo was going to be making games on mobile phones or smartphones. Nintendo said, no, we're never going to make games on mobile phones or smartphones. Now you have Mario Kart, Super Mario Run, Pokemon, which isn't necessarily Nintendo, but you have tons of Nintendo games, Dr. Mario, all of these Nintendo games on your mobile phone. When they said, no, we're never going to do that. They have a Mario movie coming out next year. The rumor for the Mario movie came out around the same time this Lego Nintendo rumor came out. Nintendo said, no, we're never going to be making movies again. We're only focused on games. And then a few months later, it turns out, yes, they're making movies. They're making their Super Mario movie.
Nintendo's notorious for this.
Yeah, they denied the Lego rumors for a long time, and now the Lego rumors
Could even happen with the new 3DS. Same thing.
Yeah, they said there wasn't going to be a new 3DS either. They said the Switch was not going to replace the Wii U. They said they were not working on Majora's Mask 3D. They said they were not working on the link between... There's tons of stuff that you can go back to where Nintendo says they weren't doing something, and then like the next month they announce it. So there's a ton of stuff like that. And this is just another one of the things. But around the time that the Mario movie was rumored, the Mario and Nintendo smartphone games were rumored. Like, all of these rumors came out around the same time. They all ended up being confirmed a long time ago. But the only one of those rumors that came around that same time that wasn't confirmed was this Lego Nintendo rumor. And there was an interview with Aonuma where he said that the next 2D Zelda game that he was working on, which, don't get confused with Link's Awakening, because that wasn't necessarily a new game. And his team wasn't necessarily working on it. Grezzo worked on Link's Awakening remake. And one of the key things that he said during the interview, it was during the Breath of the Wild release, they asked about the next 2D Zelda game. He said that the next 2D Zelda game would evolve. Like, his team wants to evolve what you think of a 2D Zelda. What does that mean? At the time, I was thinking, well, they just made A Link Between Worlds, which is a like 2.5D Zelda game, which uses 3D character models. It's a 3D world, but it's top down to look 2D. So that alone evolves what a 2D Zelda game is. And then on top of that, there's cutscenes where the camera pans down and the camera's like Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, to where you can see the characters like actually 3D with the camera behind the back, and it doesn't look 2D at all. So they already evolved what a 2D Zelda game was. So with this Lego rumor, it's like that would certainly evolve what you think of a 2D Zelda game if that were to be true. Because they came out with Link's Awakening, and it does have a new art style, but every Zelda game has a new art style.
Yeah, it didn't really break any new ground in terms of development on a 2D title, that's for sure.
Yeah, like it's a new art style, and that's it. It doesn't evolve anything. Like, you had a new art style when it went from like cartoony Wind Waker to realistic Twilight Princess. That was a huge leap. And then they mixed the two and had like a painting for effect for Skyward Sword. Breath of the Wild looked animated. The 2D games all kind of looked similar on the DS, but then on the 3DS we had A Link Between Worlds, which looked completely different than the cartoony art style, or the more cartoony art style of Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, because that was just trying to copy Wind Waker. So then they changed it for A Link Between Worlds, and then you had the handheld Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, which were just 3D games on the system. And then you had like Triforce Heroes, which was just basically A Link Between Worlds again. So there was never really a big evolution. The only thing that I could think of that would be a big evolution is, since the rumor came out that around the same time that they were making these movies and stuff, that like, hey, there's going to be a Lego Zelda game or a Lego Mario game. That is the only thing that I could think of that would evolve a 2D Zelda game, because they are like the same top-down perspective when you're playing these Lego games. They are like, they share the same type of camera angle as A Link Between World and other 2.5 games. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be like the perfect way to use what he said with evolving what a 2D Zelda game would be.
Could be. Definitely.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts on all that?
That he was maybe referencing the stuff they were working on with Breath of the Wild at the time, in terms of the 2D engine that they had.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he was referencing that, but I don't know. He could have also been referencing this Lego thing for sure too.
Yeah, the 2D thing was really cool. It was
I
like
wish they would just like, honestly, they should have just like made a product for the public to play.
Yeah, it's like
take my money, Nintendo.
Yeah,
Please.
it's like a Breath of the Wild version of the original Zelda game. It's really cool.
They used it for development purposes during the making of Breath of the Wild.
So it would be cool if that turned out to be it, but it, like with this Lego rumor, because ever since he said that, and even with Daniel on the podcast, when we talk about new Zelda games and 2D Zelda games come up, I'm like, well, Aonuma during this interview, I always bring it up, says like he wants to evolve what you think of a 2D Zelda game, and it never clicked. Like, what could it be to evolve a 2D Zelda game? Could it be something like going back to A Link Between Worlds, to where you could go from like 2.5D to like literally 2D stuck on the wall, like they did with Super Mario Odyssey? Like, they stole the A Link Between Worlds gimmick for Super Mario Odyssey, to where you could become a 2D painting on the wall. Mm-hmm. They even stole the talking hat from Minish Cap. Like, Super Mario Odyssey stole so many key elements from past Zelda games, which is really cool. But I want you all in the comments, write down what you think he meant by evolving what we think of a 2D Zelda game, because I don't think just another remake of a 2D Zelda game is what he meant. I think it would have, because he wasn't necessarily working on that. That was Grezzo, not Nintendo. But comment below what you guys think. Rick.
Another thing that would be extremely cool to see out of that is we got Hyrule Warriors, for instance, right? And they've done this with a lot of other IPs and everything with Lego. Is if they were to do the entire Zelda franchise in one Lego game. You play through the whole thing, like Hyrule Warriors type of facet. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And this Mario game or whatever they're doing to partner, whether it be a product or if it's a game or what it is, we still don't know. It would be a good way for them to segue. You know, you go from Mario, the most well-known, I would say, IP, and then the second most well-known IP that Nintendo has, which would be Zelda.
Yeah.
Well, next to Pokemon. Pokemon's up there too.
So like they have, when you look at 2D Mario games, they have the normal 2D Mario games that were like on the NES and Super Mario World and stuff. So you have those type of 2D Mario games. Like now they got Mario Maker where you can switch through the different styles. They could do something like that. They could have something like how they have Paper Mario. They could do like Paper Zelda. They could do, like they have.
That came up in an interview once.
Yeah, they have Mario and Luigi. What's it called? Like the Mario and Luigi RPG games.
What is it? Something Dream. I can't remember.
No, that's the name of one of them. But they have Mario and Luigi. Like it's a series.
Is it?
Mario, Luigi.
I know there's the RPG on what the.
Yeah, it's just called Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Mario and Luigi Bowser's in. So the series is just called Mario and Luigi.
Oh, okay.
But there's Bowser's Inside Story, Mario and Luigi Dream Team, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. So there's all these different things.
It'd
from
be a
the
really
series.
good way for them to branch out, just like Cadence of Hyrule. We've been seeing it with the Zelda series lately. So it would be tagging them along with Lego would be an extremely marketable way as well for them to like branch out.
Yeah. If you had like a 2D Mario RPG style Zelda game to where you're wandering around, like maybe it's not necessarily Link, maybe it's like you could have Zelda, Link, a Goron, a Zora, whoever in your party, and you're just going around and it's just like a Mario and Luigi style game, or I don't like maybe it could be more Fire Emblem like, to where it's like, I don't know, there's so many different ideas of how you could evolve a 2D Zelda game. But anyways, give us your final thoughts on there. What are you thinking before we wrap it up here?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, from what we've talked about here, that's all I have on the topic, really. I mean, there's not much else you could do, in my opinion, to change the 2D formula, other than completely doing what they did with Breath of the Wild and changing everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if an RPG element would work very well. I could see it with like a spin-off for sure.
Yeah.
But
like I would.
If it's gonna be a mainline like evolution, I couldn't see that happening. But definitely, like if it was a spin-off type thing, if it was Lego, that'd be cool too. I could dig it. Having a turn-based battle system in a Zelda game and having like a whole party element to it, that'd be kind of fun.
All right. Well, we have 60 people here with us before we leave. So if you got a few questions for us to answer, we can answer, I guess, one question each. because it is getting kind of late where I am. So 2 questions. Come on, guys.
Hey, my bad. I don't know if you were talking to the chat or me or what.
No. And you got Rick's Twitter up there for you to. Everyone can go give him a follow. If you look in the description, you can find mine as well. I'll post it here in the chat too. And then you can always join our Discord where we are always talking. What are your thoughts on about the Direct rumors? Have you heard any Nintendo Direct rumors?
Well, I've heard some rumors that we're going to possibly have a Nindies next week. Is it next week? I think the 18th. Yes, and that there is the following week, the 26th, we'll have a Direct. That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. I at this point, I'm just Nintendo's gonna do a Direct when they want to. Nobody's going to tell us other than them.
Yeah,
I'm at like my ends meet with it.
They've been crazy with it to where like they used to announce it like a month ahead of time. Now it's like, hey, we're having one tomorrow in 10 hours. Get ready. And it's like, what? Like, why are you doing this?
It's always 6 a.m. too.
Yeah, but it kind of, I guess it kind of makes sense because then it makes it a surprise to where maybe they got tired of like if they had it prepped and then everything was recorded and the video was done like 2 weeks ahead of time and it was just waiting to go up, then information could get out and leaks and stuff. But if they just finalize the video like the day before, and then they're like, hey, the video goes up tomorrow, then it doesn't have that time for the people who worked on the trailer to be like leaking it to whoever. If it is the people who work on the trailer, it could be any random person that leaks it. But yeah, like I think that's why they started doing it that way, because it did get to a point where everyone was like, hey, there's going to be a Nintendo Direct on this day. And then on that day, there was a Nintendo Direct.
Yeah. The thing I've been getting the most worried about is just that we're getting, well, we just talked about E3 being canceled, but in terms of the actual like on-site event, but of course Nintendo will do their Direct and all that. But the thing that I've been getting worried about is the fact that we're encroaching on announcement territory for E3. So it's like, guys got to do it sometime soon. I know Nintendo, I think on the 31st, they're doing an investor meeting or sometime after that. So they're going to have to give us something soon.
Yeah. I think we will 100% see a Nintendo Direct before the big E3 Direct. And then after E3, they always have the Nintendo Treehouse. And there's been times when they've announced better games on the Nintendo Treehouse than the actual Nintendo Direct. Like, there was one year where I think it was the year they announced Triforce Heroes. After the Direct, they announced on the Treehouse the Samus Returns, like the Metroid remake for the 3DS. And then like it had its own themed Nintendo 3DS, and I'm like, this is something that should have been in the Direct. Like, everyone would have been excited about this. But they saved it for the Treehouse. And then there's been times when, like, Skyward Sword was first announced, and it was just called Zelda for Wii, or whatever. They had their investors meeting after the Nintendo Direct. They didn't mention anything Zelda-related during the Direct. And then during the investors meeting, they released a poster online, and it was just the poster of, I think, do I have it? I don't think I have it. Yeah, it was the one of Link and Fi just like standing there, and it was Skyward Sword, or what would have been Skyward Sword, but it was in Twilight Princess artwork. So it was really cool. It wasn't that painted look. It was more of the natural Twilight Princess artwork. So that was really interesting. But yeah, anyways, that's getting off topic. The Direct, I think they will have one before E3. And E3, well, what would have been E3 is a few months away. So I think we'll get something definitely before the end of April is what I'm thinking.
I'm like up in the air.
Yeah.
No clue.
Do you see any other, the final question on there?
No.
You don't see any?
Where is it? Nope. I don't think anybody asked anything else.
Alright, let me take a look.
Breath of the Wild 2. Oh, will Breath of the Wild 2 really come this year?
Oh, that was... I would have said yes before this virus thing. Because we don't know how bad it has actually affected Nintendo. Because there's been a lot of developers, like development studios, that have sent their developers to work at home. And when you're working from home, it's hard to communicate with the director or the producer to see if what you're doing is what they want. So we don't really know how that's affecting. Like, we don't know if Nintendo's doing that. There have been companies that have spoken out and said that they have done that, to where they're allowing their people to work from home, but I don't think Nintendo has spoken out to say anything about it. And if they do, that'll definitely slow down development.
Yeah.
But what?
I don't know if they'll even mention it at this point, just because of the fact that, like, so many things are being damaged by just even mentioning the fact that, virus this, virus that,
Yeah.
But maybe.
Yeah. But if it wasn't for that, I would say that it would definitely come out this year, because all of the character models, the world, everything is already done. Whenever they made Breath of the Wild originally, they said the thing that kept on causing it to be delayed and delayed and delayed was the physics engine. It wasn't the story, it wasn't the characters, it wasn't the graphics, it wasn't all that. It was the physics engine, to where you can roll a barrel or chop down a tree and it'll fall over the right way and roll, or the wind will blow and an apple will run across. They had it to where they would adjust something because the wind would blow, but the apples wouldn't roll. So they would adjust it so the apples would roll. But then it would get to where someone would hit a barrel and it would just shoot it flying across the world. So they would have to adjust it again. And that's what kept causing the delays. And even now, people are figuring out bugs in the physics engine, like the one that's been going around to where you can launch the Guardians way up in the air with the ice. What is it? The rune ability, where you make ice come up out of the water. That's the stuff they kept on trying to delay the game to fix. So since they kind of got it fixed, like, there's a few tricks that people can do with the physics engine, but it's not game-breaking stuff. And since that was the reason they said they kept on delaying the original game, I think this one is going to come along smoothly, especially because Monolith Soft helped a lot with the original Breath of the Wild. And early on in the development of Breath of the Wild 2, they officially announced that they had there's an official Zelda team at Monolith Soft that's working on the Zelda game. It could be helping on Breath of the Wild 2, like they did the original. They could be working on their own new original Zelda game. They could be working on a remake, like how they hired Tantalus or Grezzo to work on Zelda remakes. They could have made this Monolith Soft Zelda team to work on, like, Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword for the Switch. we don't really know. They could have just been hired to work on Breath of the Wild 2 again. They could be working on an entirely new original Zelda game. Like Nintendo hired Capcom to make a bunch of original Zelda games. They made, they remade A Link to the Past for the Game Boy Advance. Added a bunch of weird Ocarina of Time sound effects into it. They put a new dungeon in it.
The whole Four Swords thing was added.
Yeah. And then they had Minish Cap, and I think they made the Force, or they helped with the Four Swords on GameCube. So there have been official Zelda games that weren't made by Nintendo. Capcom did a really great job on the Game Boy Advance games. And the Oracle games. I think they made the Oracle games as well. That's interesting. Nintendo never made
I believe so.
a Zelda game for the Game Boy except the first one. So that's kind of crazy. But yeah, there's just like Capcom did, Nintendo could have Monolith Soft working on their own original Zelda game, or they could be just speeding up the process for Breath of the Wild 2. But since all the character models and everything is already there for Breath of the Wild 2, it'll be like Majora's Mask to Ocarina of Time, basically. Like everything's already there, but they do need to still make the new dungeons and the new world and everything. That's what everyone says, like with Majora's Mask. They're like, it only took a year because everything was already made for Ocarina of Time. It wasn't.
Yeah.
They had to make Clocktown, they had to make the swamp, they had to make the new Goron City, they had to make the new Zora's Domain, or whatever it's called. They had to make an entirely new world with all the side quests, with everything. Yeah.
There was a ton of stuff to do. Plus text. Text is a huge chunk of like
Yeah.
people's jobs.
And
translating stuff over too.
They had to make
takes a lot of time.
They had to make the dungeons. They had to make the dungeons, the bosses, the side quests, all of the programming. It's not that simple. Yes, they had character models. They had the engine. That was it. With Breath of the Wild, they have even more to use in Breath of the Wild than they had from Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask. And yes, Breath of the Wild is a lot more advanced than Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but so are the equipment that they are making the games with. And I think they said there's only like less than 40 people working on Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, to where there's hundreds of people working on Breath of the Wild 2 with much more advanced equipment. So for the people saying that like Breath of the Wild 2 is going to take another 5 or 6 years, no, like 2-3 years, and then it's done. Like they're not making an entire new world and scrapping everything and starting over. They have everything. And again, the thing they said took the longest was the physics engine, and they've already perfected that. But go ahead and say what you were going to say, and then we can end this.
Funny thing that I've for me, I'm not 100% on. I'm like on the fence on whether or not it's coming out in 2020. I really hope, the Zelda fanboy in me really hopes that it comes out this year, but seeing as the way that everything's been going, I don't see it happening. I could see them doing, which would be fitting, is if they waited and they release it in spring of 2021 along with a brand new console, so they skip competing directly during the holiday season with the Xbox and PlayStation, but it would be bad in the sense of they're missing out on the holiday sales.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would work so close to a brand new console launch, so probably not. They'd probably wait till the holiday season of 2021. But the funny thing that and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not 100%, but most Zelda games that have been delayed, at least main console titles, have had a delay. Breath of the Wild, mainly because of the physics engine, but also because it was being released on the Wii U and the Switch too.
Yeah.
So like most Zelda games that have gotten a delay have been because they were postponed for a console release. with like I think what was it? Twilight Princess got delayed because it was getting put on the Wii and the GameCube, and of course Breath of the Wild. Did Skyward Sword have a delay? I'm sure because of motion controls or something.
I think it was delayed, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so I mean, majority of them have been something because they've been trying to hold back due to a console launch or something. And funny enough is that like majority of the big Zelda games that have been released alongside a brand new console, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So maybe they're waiting to release it with the Switch too. I don't know, or the Switch Pro, whatever.
Yeah, like even if you go back to the original Zelda game, it was released alongside the Famicom disk system, because the original Famicom didn't have the power to run the original game, and then they downgraded it, and that's the version we all got to play on the NES. And then they made a Famicom version of it as well. And then on the Super Nintendo, I think it just released like normal. But then they had the BS Satellaview, and they had Zelda games for it. Like an upgraded version of the original Zelda and stuff like that. Ocarina of Time was originally supposed to not release with the 64 disc drive, but it was supposed to have that expansion, and then Majora's Mask was originally made to release with the disc drive as well, and then it went to the standard Nintendo 64, and then I can't think of anything else. Majora's Mask released around the same time the new 3DS released, because they made a big deal about having the second thumbstick. What's that?
Wind Waker HD, did it come with the Wii? Or
No.
That came later, huh?
Yeah, it
Or
was
the Wii
later.
U, I mean.
Because Hyrule Warriors, I think, came before Wind Waker HD.
Okay. It's been so long.
That was a really cool Nintendo Direct. I remember it because I use it a lot in videos. Because they showed trailers for Wind Waker HD, Hyrule Warriors, and Aonuma gave details for what was called Zelda Wii U at the time. And then what would have been Breath of the Wild. But they said it was going to have like multiplayer and a bunch of other stuff, which ended up not even being true. Like there's no multiplayer at all in Breath of the Wild, but it was originally supposed to be. So who knows?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of. They're supposed to use the gamepad a lot more.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be in that game.
There's stuff in the Creating a Champions book, I seen earlier, that there's a lot of stuff that looked like you could have done with the Sheikah slate that would have matched the Wii U, which I might make a video game on, to where like you could see your character on your TV, but then like how you had the beetle in Skyward Sword, there would be like a camera that you could fly around, but it would be on the gamepad screen and you could see it. So there's a bunch of cool stuff in the Creating a Champions book that they took out because it was moved from the Wii U to the Switch, which is kind of like what they did on Twilight Princess for the Wii and the GameCube. Like they both had their benefits, where the Wii version was widescreen, so you could see more, but the GameCube version had the analog stick, to where you could have like more control of the camera. So there was like, that was really, really weird how like there was pros and cons to both versions of the game.
Yeah, where I think the Switch and Wii U versions of Breath of the Wild, I think the HD or not. No, there's no HD rumble. It's the sounds or something like that are different.
Yeah, the sound, and then 720p and
Yeah.
900p. But anyways, thank you everyone for watching. I don't know why there's like almost 50 of you still listening to us ramble on. But thank you all. And thank you, RMFH,
Oh,
Rick,
thank you for having
my
me on.
friend.
Thank you guys for listening to us all this time. Well, how long have we been on here for?
It just hit the hour mark,
Oh wow.
coincidentally.
Feels like it's been longer.
Well, we were talking for a while before we started.
That's
so.
true.
But yeah, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for watching. Expect a really cool video about the Breath of the Wild 2 rumor coming tomorrow. That'll be in a lot more detail than the discussion that we had today. But thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful night.